Warm greetings from the High 10. It is Everyday Shenanigans on this Monday, December 28th, 2020. Thanks for joining me, you guys. I wanted to bring you more information pertaining to the man that has been identified in the Nashville bombing that took place on Christmas Day. His name is Anthony Quinn Warner, and I will be bringing you information by the Tennessean if you need verification for the storyline. It is a bit winded, so please bear with me. Federal let me start with the title first. Excuse me. Anthony Quinn Warner, self-employed computer guru, ID'd as lone Nashville bomber, killed in blast. The Tennessean is the source. Federal authorities say a 63-year-old Antioch man was responsible for a Christmas morning bombing that left the suspect dead and captured the nation's attention over the holiday weekend as officials worked to determine who parked an RV downtown to detonate. What motivated him is still unknown. Hundreds of federal, state, and local law enforcement officers worked to solve the case. And just 60 hours after the explosion, agents Sunday evening named Anthony Quinn Warner as the bomber. He died in the blast. He was present when the bomb went off and perished in the bombing, said Don Cochran, U.S. Attorney for the Middle District of Tennessee. Through DNA evidence, authorities confirmed Warner's remains were found at the scene, Cochran said. I cannot truly describe all the hard work that has gone into this investigation since Friday's explosion, Metro Nashville Police Chief John Drake said during Sunday's announcement. Nashville is considered safe. Police earlier in the day released chilling details about the moments before the bomb detonated on 2nd Avenue about 6:30 a.m. on Friday, adding to an eerie portrait of a man in an RV who blared evacuation warnings before the explosion demolished a city block. When acquaintances on Sunday described Tony Warner as a self-employed computer guru and a homebody who tended to his pets and kept to himself, police officers on the scene before the bomb exploded recalled a strange recording emanating from the RV. In between a digitized female voice giving warnings to evacuate the area, there was music, the officers said. Downtown, a wistful 1964 song by Petula Clark echoed down 2nd Avenue just before the blast. When you're alone and life is making you lonely, you can always go downtown, blared Clark's voice through the speakers. When you've got worries, all the noise and the hurry seems to help, I know. Despite massive destruction to 41 buildings, no one else was killed in the explosion. Officers helped evacuate nearby residents from several apartments. The RV was parked outside of an AT&T facility, though authorities have not said whether they believe the telecommunications company may have been a target. The blast caused extensive damage to phone and internet coverage throughout the region, causing communication blackouts for 911 centers in surrounding counties, leaving customers throughout the state without service and exposing vulnerabilities in infrastructure. Governor Bill Lee on Saturday requested federal aid in efforts to help businesses affected by the explosion. An evening curfew remained in place until Sunday, though access to downtown is still restricted. Authorities are expected to continue the investigation downtown in coming days. The type of explosives used in the blast remain unknown. Warner wasn't on the radar of law enforcement before Friday's explosion, they said, and the officials have declined to deem the bombing an act of terrorism. Doug Korneski, an FBI special agent in charge, said Sunday investigators had reviewed hours of security video surrounding the recreational vehicle and determined no other suspects were involved in the bombing. Tips from the public helped authorities initially identify Warner as a suspect. The Tennessee Highway Patrol discovered a vehicle parked from the RV with a vehicle identification number linking it to Warner. Korinsky requested people who knew Warner to contact police to share information while authorities investigate any and all motives. None of those answers will ever be enough for those who have been affected by this event, Korinsky said. Who was Tony Warner? Warner grew up in Antioch and attended Antioch High School, graduating in the mid-1970s before settling down in the same community and working various IT jobs. But in just the past month, Warner appeared to put his affairs in order. He transferred ownership of a home where he had lived for decades. He informed a regular business client he would no longer be working. Property records show on the day before Thanksgiving, Warner transferred the title of his long-time Bakertown Road home to a Los Angeles woman. The transaction, a quit-claim deed that did not require the woman's signature, was made for $0. Steve Frederick, who owns Frederick and Clark Realty, said Warner was hired 4 or 5 years ago as contractor to provide IT services for the business. Warner repaired the company's computers and set up machines for new employees. In December, he sent us an email saying he no longer be working for us, Frederick said. Warner didn't give a reason. The company reached out to FBI after learning through news coverage that Warner was a person of interest in the case. Agents visited the office Saturday evening, FBI spokesman Jason Pack confirmed. In this said article, you will see a younger Mr. Warner. I'm assuming it's a high school photo. Yes, it says 1974, excuse me. They found this off, I guess, Ancestry.com. Warner hadn't had a run-in with authorities since 1978, when, as a young adult, he was charged with felony drug possession. He served 2 years of probation. Yearbooks from Antioch High School show Warner, a short teenager with glasses, played on the school's golf team. Charlie Bozeman, a longtime Metro High School coach, was in charge of Antioch's golf coach in 1974 when Warner played. What I can remember about him was essentially 3 things: quiet, polite, and I don't like to use the term, but quite frankly, nerdish. Recall Bozeman, he was a very reserved person. He wasn't outgoing around me. I never had any discipline problems with him whatsoever, but that whole group was all great kids. Today, Warner does not have a public presence on social media or other websites. Neighbors say Warner had no obvious political ideology. Neighbors who have lived by Warner for decades say he rarely left home, instead spending much of his time working in his yard. He kept to himself, but would speak to his neighbors, engaging in small talk before going on his way. Steve Schmote and his wife have lived next door to Warner for 25 years. He described Warner as a low-key and friendly, though some people would say he's a little odd. You never saw anyone come and go, Schmote said of Warner's home. Never saw him go anywhere. As far as we knew, he was kind of a computer geek that worked at home. Warner had placed lights and security cameras outside his house. He would do a lot of work in his yard where a tall antenna is prominent on the side of the house, Schmote said. Warner built the fence around his yard himself. And I will show you that said home on the video on my screen to show you that there was a small security camera that he had installed on the side of the building, facing the front of the house, rather, I guess for security reasons. The neighbors never talked about politics or religion. Warner never gave any indication of any closely held ideology. I can tell you as far as politics, he never had any yard signs or flags in his window or anything like that. If he did have any political beliefs, he kept. That was something he kept to himself. Schmote said while the RV had been parked outside the home for some years, a couple of weeks ago, Warner built a gate in the fence and drove the RV into his yard. Daniel Douglas, who lived across the street from Warner for 26 years, said Warner told him he moved the RV because people were trying to break into it. Warner received packages frequently, his neighbor said, and in the past year installed a mailbox. Previously, Warner used a post office box to receive his mail, but then began receiving packages at home, Douglas said. As news unfolded Friday morning, it wasn't immediately obvious that Warner and his RV were nowhere to be found. To be honest, we didn't really pay any attention. It was gone until the FBI and ATF showed up, Schmote said. He and his wife watched the news Christmas morning as information began to unfold about the 2nd Avenue bombing. They saw the photos police released of the RV in question. That night they noticed some cars driving up and down their street. Then on Saturday they saw a large group of law enforcement outside Warner's home. Holy cow, there's a SWAT team out there, Schmote recalled his wife saying as she looked out the front door mid-morning. When Schmote learned that whoever was in the RV appeared to have tried to avoid casualties, his mind went to Warner's devotion to his animals for so many years. Warner had dogs over the years, first 2 small Shelties and then a large dog he adopted. So the pets have since died. Schmote said Warner took really good care of his dogs, even building a wheelchair ramp for them when they got older so the animals didn't have to use stairs to get inside the house. If it was him, he didn't want anybody hurt, Schmote said. But if that's the case, what other message is there? If indeed it was him, I don't know. They have to figure out some kind of motive. This said information is brought to you by the Tennessean. So, Mr. Get his full name correct, Anthony Quinn Warner, 63 years of age, self-employed IT worker, guru, perished in the blast. FBI has identified Mr. Warner as the suspect of the bombing and the man identified with the said information. As I told you in previous videos, DNA has been confirmed through his mother that he is the suspect, and parts of the car, the RV, was detected by state troopers and verified from particles from the car and tag that indeed Mr. Warner's name was on that said vehicle that blew up in the blast. I want to bring you said information by a news source, and this is just give you a little recap of what's taking place in Nashville, Tennessee, and also give you a picture of the home that he lives in, a duplex, and just the general area, and you will see a security camera on the building if you look closely that he put there, and you also see the fence that the RV was parked in. Here we go.
Now, really incredible scene in Nashville. Developments now in that Christmas Day bombing there. Investigators named a suspect overnight, confirming that the man died in that blast. Now, this one, the officers who rushed to the scene to save lives are speaking out, and emotionally speaking out as well. Marcus Lord is there in Nashville with the very latest. Marcus, good morning to you.
TK, good morning. We are just outside the blast zone here in Nashville. This is the closest we've been able to get all weekend, and I want you to take a look at our second camera. And you will see that building in the distance there. There are apartments and businesses in that second street. And you can see the fire alarms are still going off. The windows have been blown out. And look at all of that debris covering the ground. It's evidence of a massive explosion that shook the Music City.
Overnight, federal agents naming a suspect in that investigation into the powerful explosion that rocked Nashville early Christmas morning.
Anthony Warner is the man believed to be responsible for this horrible crime.
Surveillance cameras trained on the popular downtown area captured from multiple angles this RV exploding. Police releasing this video showing a vicious fireball lighting up the sky, hurling debris across several blocks.
He was present when the bomb went off, and then he perished in the bombing.
The investigators also looking into Warner's psychiatric and medical history for clues and trying to determine whether the AT&T building where the RV was parked was his intended target. Multiple law enforcement sources told ABC News investigators are seriously exploring whether Warner may have been motivated, at least in part, by a paranoia over 5G cellular technology. At a home associated with Warner seen in this video exclusively obtained by ABC News, agents can be seen carrying out bags of evidence, and nearby, more officers in tactical view. ABC News has learned through court records that Warner, who once owned and lived at the home being searched, recently transferred the deed to a woman in California. What connection that may have to the explosion is under investigation. Meanwhile, 6 Metro Nashville police officers hailed as heroes, reliving the desperate moment they rushed to evacuate families before the blast.
Well, we spoke to a mom, so it was a female police officer, came to them. Do you remember that moment?
We needed her to evacuate. She said, okay, let me get my kids. And that kind of just like put my heart up in my throat.
The officers acting quickly as an eerie recording counted down to detonation.
It felt like I only took 3 steps, and then the music stopped, and as I'm walking back towards Topping now, I just see orange, and then I hear a loud boom.
Here's another look at one of the buildings that was damaged, people's homes and businesses left in ruins. And this investigation is not over. The FBI is still in control of the scene just behind me here as they search for answers and clues, but they still don't have a motive. And they're asking the public for help. Anyone with information, they want them to come forward as this city tries to heal. And Mary, clearly that will take some time.
Some time indeed, Marcus. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks for that, for your patience. Well, as you see, that was a little bit of information pertaining to the bombing in Nashville, the identification of Mr. Anthony Quinn Warner, known to his neighbors as Tony. They don't have a motive as of yet to why he enacted this crime, but the 5G theory came up, and what I find interesting about that is that here you have this man who worked in IT, worked with computers. This was his thing, what he did for a living. And to think, if it is true, because we do not know yet, that he would get immersed mentally in thinking that something was in the 5G, whatever that is, I do not know, was what? Watching Americans, watching him, perhaps led him to put the security cameras outside, putting the RV inside the yard, yet he tells the neighbor, I put the RV in the yard because someone was trying to break into it. So one would have to wonder, when did he put the cameras outside his home? Is it because of crime, or was it because he was unraveling mentally? And is that also the reason why he parked the RV in the yard? It's because he was unraveling mentally and perhaps thought 5G was watching the house, 5G was watching the car, the RV, 5G was trying to break into his RV. This is really serious because it shows something's wrong with this guy. No matter what they come up with, whom they talk to, something was going on with Mr. Warner for him to go buy pieces of something to build a bomb, change over his personal business with his home, with other parties in California, a woman in California, calling this realty company to say he would no longer be working for them. Yes, he was getting all his ducks in a row for the big bang, obviously. So it shows you he knew what he was doing. That's one thing we can say for certain. In order to transfer homes to another party, 2 homes to this woman who says she doesn't know anything about the homes, calling the job to tell them, I will no longer be working for you. The RV was missing for a couple of days, the neighbors say. Shows you he knew exactly what he was doing. So he was in his right mind to be able to take care of his business. Whether he was unraveling mentally, don't know if he's been diagnosed with any type of disorder, mental diseases, schizophrenia, but schizophrenia does come to mind. This is just a crazy, crazy story. I will bring you more information pertaining to this, but I am curious to who called in the tip. Is it the neighbor next door? Because as you see, it's a duplex that has 2 doors on, next to one another. Yeah, neighbors across the street he talked to. So I'm curious as to who called the tip in about the RV. Is it the couple across the street or the people next door? Because somebody called in. And I'm very curious to know who are the people who called in the tips about the RV. And as they stated, they found that same RV or similar RV in a Google search at that same location of the home on Bakertown Road. And as I say, DNA has confirmed through his mother, living mother, that he is indeed, the remains belong to Mr. Warner. I will be bringing you another video pertaining to the song Downtown that was played out of the RV and the significance of that song and Mr. Warner and his mindset. So look forward to that next video coming up after this video uploads. Thank you so much for joining me. This is a riveting case out of Nashville, Tennessee, Music City. And honey, it's like the Dirty South has been known for many things. And it's been in the news, the Dirty South, the past couple of years, several years, for all types of shenanigans and crime, just like anywhere else in the U.S. But Lord have mercy, to have a bombing right here in the Dirty South, 3 hours away from me, less than 3 hours from me, it's mind-blowing. It is mind-blowing. Prayers to the people of Nashville, hoping all of you who have AT&T service, that you get your service on. I'm still wondering if AT&T is also the target. Let me throw that in before I jump off of here. I'm wondering, because let's think about it. AT&T services, telephone, computer, internet. But don't you find that interesting? The RV's parked outside there. He worked in IT. Someone has brought forth this 5G theory of him feeling like maybe he was being spied on, Americans were being spied on through 5G. So one would have to wonder, like I said, where to get that information. And you start tallying everything and tying everything together, I kind of think that perhaps AT&T, the building, was the target. Very riveting story out of Nashville, Tennessee. I'll bring you more information when I get to said info update. Thanks for joining me on this Monday in the High 10. God bless all of you masked up. COVID is real. I will be back. Like, share, subscribe, drop the comments below. This is Everyday Shenanigans. Bye-bye.